So I'm back again to talk about The Exorcist III, which is a different study of faith or sort of lack of thereof, I guess. Exorcist III is a phenomenal film. I absolutely love it. It is a great psychological horror. I do prefer the theatrical over the director's cut. And this will contain absolute spoilers. I'm going to suggest that you watch The Exorcist III. It is the true sequel to The Exorcist, unlike this thing right here, which I am excited to watch, but it's, from the parts I've seen, it's just ew. So Exorcist III follows Lieutenant Kindermen, and this takes place 15 years after the events of The Exorcist, after Father Karras has fallen down the stairs, and he's still haunted by the death of his friend to this day. And Kinderman he's a cop. He is that cop where he believes in hard evidence. He believes in facts. He doesn't have any faith, really. He's friends with a lot of priests, and he values their positions and opinions, but he doesn't really believe in a higher power per se. And he starts discovering that there are these murders that are very similar to a killer called the Gemini. And the Gemini has also been dead for 15 years. But the weird thing is, these killings are, one, having details that were never made public, and two, the fingerprints don't match the original Gemini killer, and three, obviously, the guy's been dead. So he's trying to figure out, how the hell is this happening? So he finds out that a lot of the fingerprints happen to belong to some mental patients that are either too old or too comatose to be leaving the hospital bed. So it's like, how are their fingerprints at these crime scenes? So he spends a lot of time at this hospital, and one of the nurses brings up that there is this patient called Patient X that has been comatose for 15 years and has recently shown some activity and has actually like talked to people. So he goes to see this guy, and he is just shocked. In the audience, we don't see what he sees, we just see his reaction to it. It's a great scene. And it's a good like 5 minutes before he's like, I think Patient X might be Father Karras. And how can that be? I mean, he fell down the steps. He was obviously dead. And hearing this guy say this, that believes in the concrete, that believes in the finality of death, and believes in evidence, doesn't know what to make of what he sees before his very eyes, but yet is forced to tell the people that he works with, some guy that used to be dead might be alive again and might somehow also have a connection to the Gemini killer, who is also dead. So he talks to this Patient X, and we figure out as an audience that it is indeed Father Karras, and he doesn't necessarily believe it. He refers to him as somebody who looks like Father Karras. And throughout this scene, and it's the best scene in the movie, it's a good like 10 minutes long, where Kinderman is talking to Patient X, and his face, and when he says to Patient X, well, you can't be the Gemini killer is dead, his face turns into Brad Dourif, and Brad Dourif represents the personality of the Gemini killer. And we find out through this conversation that the Gemini killer died on the same day that Karras did, and was transported into Karras's body by some sort of outside force. You still with me? So the Gemini killer's spirit and personality was put into the broken body of Karras instead of passing on. That's what he tells this cop, and this cop's like, Kinderman's like, I don't believe you for 1 second. You're a freaking madman. But he's able to recall all of the killings exactly, even though he's never left his cell. How is this possible? how is this possible at all? So, being the detective that he is, he starts thinking, I gotta think outside the box, otherwise I'm not going to catch this guy. He's just gonna keep killing, and he starts to discover maybe he's somehow using the patients to commit his murders for him. So he gets this wild idea that the Gemini killer is essentially hopping into other patients' bodies. While Karis is his permanent residence, he can go to other bodies temporarily and can control them. And whether or not the lieutenant officially accepts this, he is like, I'm out of ideas to catch this guy. Let's go with the craziest thing ever, that he is essentially controlling other people somehow. And he ends up being exactly right, and he almost loses his own family over it. The Gemini ends up trying to kill his family through the body of this of one of the other patients, and he just narrowly saves his own family. And at the end of the film, he and another priest who doesn't get a lot of screen time. He's sort of a last minute addition to the film. He's mentioned once, and it's sort of a production problem, but anyway, that's not important. For the point of the story, Kindermen and this priest are now faced with the Gemini, who is possessing Father Karras's body, and it's the problem of how the hell do we get him out? How the hell do we put him where he's supposed to be, and so that way he's not killing anybody anymore. The priest does his best to try and get him out of there, and he doesn't have the same issues of faith that Father Karras has. However, he's only one priest, and eventually he's pretty badly beaten, almost killed, and Kinderman comes in, and the Gemini asks him, all right, before I kill you, any last words? What do you believe in, Lieutenant? Like something like that. And it's a whole awesome scene, and Kinderman proclaims all these things he's starting to believe in, that he believes in evil, in cruelty, that he believes in law, and all these other things. He just proclaims his belief, and it's through his own realization that maybe there's something bigger than him. His faith in his friend. He begs Father Karras, who is buried underneath all this hatred, all this killing, the Gemini killer himself. He begs his friend to help him, and for a split second, Father Karras regains control of his body and asks his friend to kill him, and Kinderman does. So, like the original Exorcist, Exorcist III it's not as big of a study on faith. I mean, it's interesting to see this cop, everything that he knows is challenged, but it's in a completely different way than Father Karras in the original, because, like I said, he doesn't believe in God. He believes in humanity as killers, not these spirits, demons, or anything else like that. And he's sort of pushed into a corner where he has to accept that as a possibility, that something else might be committing these murders, and eventually that's what leads him to victory, is the acceptance that there might be something more than what is just in front of his eyes. And I think that Exorcist III, while more of a psychological thriller and more of a cop, slight paranormal drama, there is a challenge of faith inside of this film for Kinderman, and I love the resolution to this, and like I said, I prefer the theatrical over the director's cut. The Exorcist III is phenomenal. Comment below, let me know what your thoughts are. If you've ever viewed Exorcist III in this way, what your thoughts on the film are in general. As always, if you like what you see here, you can follow me on social media. My book, Night of the Half Angel, is available on ebook and paperback. Thanks as always for watching. Bye.